Hey everyone, it's Brian here from Massey's Main Entertainment. We coming back this week after coming off a really great video of where we counted down the top 10 movies of Martin Scorsese, each of us anyway. And we're back hitting our regular series where we're going from 1965 all the way to 1979, doing our top 5 movies from each particular year. Joined tonight by my regular guys. Doc, how you doing, buddy?
All good, all good.
Doc, whose country seems to ruin every time zone discussion we ever have. Rich Strickler, his Phillies just lost yesterday, so he might be in a state of mourning, but hopefully he can get through tonight. And our buddy Randy, who actually was one of the few people in the United States that seemed to like the Irishman last week. So we're gonna let it all go. So we're back this week, though. We're up to the year 1971. Really it was an interesting year when I started to research it and everything. And there was probably 8 movies that I really kind of bounced back and forth for the last couple of days. And I eventually came up with my 5. The takeaway I had, guys, and I'm going to let you comment on it, is I thought that this year for me felt like I did a little bit of reading on it, felt like a particularly violent year. And I know that there were a couple movies in this mix that actually caused a Congress to actually start looking again hard at the movie rankings and whether or not there was just a little bit too much violence in the movies. But maybe that was just kind of a sign of the times. What did you guys think of the year?
I'll go with sign of the times. Movies generally reflect the society we live in, and the 70s, there was a lot of things happening there. The Vietnam War was still going on in 1971, so directors were putting violent images on the screen, not necessarily wartime, but and they seem to attract big crowds. I mean, people go to these kind of movies, and the more controversial, the better. Censorship, the rating system just came in a few years before, so a lot of people were titillated by the R rating, I think, and went to see what was out there. It was the beginning of the rating system. I think that had a lot to do with it, so we'll see.
Yeah. Randy, what'd you think?
Yeah, I think this was starting to get more. They were directors started getting away with what we call more than in previous years.
Yep.
And they pushed the envelope a little bit more, I think, in this year than the other ones.
Yep.
Yeah. Doc, you agree?
Yeah, I was going to say, you know what? This is when they start to push. This is when they start to push how far they can actually push their ratings and stuff like that. It's exactly what's going on at this time. We came from the 60s where there was certain things, and at the end of the 60s, you can see the experimental things starting to happen a little, and now it floats into the 70s or early 70s, and it hit hard this year with exactly that kind of stuff. And I can see why maybe people were looking at different things of the cinema scope on what they were going to do and stuff and ratings, but
yeah,
tough year.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's maybe a sign of things to come in other years for this decade. I know this is a favorite decade for a lot of people who enjoy movies. And it's a decade of huge change, before you spin the wheels and get to the 80s where things kind of soften down a little bit. But so tonight we're going to go in this order. We're going to go, Randy, you're going to have to go first tonight. Doc, you're going to follow him. Rich will go third, and I will do the cleanup tonight. What we do is we go almost like around the horn. We're going to count down. Each one of us will give our number 5, and then 4, 3, 2, and count it right down, and go from there. We encourage everybody to go back and watch all the other videos in our series. Please like, sub, comment, and definitely leave your top 5 down below. We would really love to see that. It's always nice to see those comments, and really helps keep us in the algorithm. So we appreciate any help you can give us there. So without further ado, Randy, you get to kick us off. Number 5.
Well, my number 5 was probably my most difficult because I had my 4 picked out, and it was who was going to make number 5. And I had 5 other movies that I was really thinking about for this one. And I don't know, but I just picked the movie that affected me the most. I don't know if this will give any hint of what my number 5 is. Anybody got any ideas?
No.
Place for dancing.
Yeah.
Nope.
Errol Garner actually wrote the song Misty.
Oh, okay. There we go.
And in fact, Universal didn't have that song. So I'm talking about the movie Play Misty for Me, Clint Eastwood. And they didn't have that song, and they wanted Clint to use Strangers in the Night because they had that in their system, and he kind of said no. So I think they paid him like $25,000 to use that song.
Whoa.
But
Wow.
but anyway, for me, it was just a great thriller. Before Fatal Attraction, you had Play Misty for Me, and Jessica Walter was so realistic in this role that it kind of typecast her for the rest of her career in some ways.
Yeah.
And you also had the beautiful Monterey Peninsula that they used, and you can see that Clint had picked up a lot of pointers, especially with Don Siegel, Don Siegel actually plays the bartender in this movie. But for me, it was just a great thriller and had me on the edge right into the end. So that's what I'm picking for my number 5.
Nice pick. Excellent.
Excellent.
Doc, how are you going to follow that up, buddy?
I will say, the guys will attest to this. I can tell you, I really like Jessica Walter's performance in Play Misty for Me on a previous video that we've done. And you're right. The 4 maybe kind of had that squared away, but getting that 5th one, I had 9 movies I had to get out of my system to actually figure out where I was getting that number 5 from. So Play Misty was on that list of 9, but I went with the Anderson tapes as my number 5, actually.
Oh,
Nice. All right.
Sean Connery breaking away from the trying to break away from the Bond, but actually he doesn't, because he's got a Bond out this year as well. But the Anderson tapes is a great. He's a burglar. He gets getting out of prison, and he's getting back into it. He gets right back into it. He's out for a cup of coffee, and he's planning his next gig as soon as he gets out. So it's a great supporting cast with Balsam's in it, and Connery. I don't remember who else is in it with him now. But it's a caper robber film, man, and it's almost got like an Inside Man. You can see where they might draw from some of these things inside their movies later on and stuff like that. So, there's a lot of guy kind of flicks, I would say, for 71, and this is a guy flick for me in a lot of senses too. So, it's a personal list, and you'll see that as we go. And the Anderson tapes, I think it's a great burglary Connery flick, man. Like I said, there's lots to choose from, but I went with that one. I like that one a lot.
nice.
Interesting. All right. Rich.
I might be the only one that has this movie, but it's a movie that stuck with me for 52 years. So I'm going with Carnal Knowledge, directed by Mike Nichols, starring Jack Nicholson, Anne Margaret, Candice Bergen, and Art Garfunkel, of all people. A movie about sex and relationships, told from really a male point of view. This guy's a womanizer, Jack Nicholson, and he looks at women as purely sex objects. He doesn't know the difference between sex and love, in my opinion. It's not politically correct. It's a little bit dated with some of the language that they use, as far as a man talking to a woman and barefoot and pregnant, keep them in the kitchen where they belong, kind of thing. It's old school. But it was told 50 years ago, so you got to go with that. It's a different relationship kind of movie now that they would make. It's raw, the realistic dialogue. It's humorous at times, insightful, extremely well acted. Anne Margaret's fantastic in this movie. And I'm a Jack Nicholson maven from the early 70s. Every film he did is right in my wheelhouse. So that's why it's on the list. Carnal Knowledge, number 5.
Nice. All right. Well, we're going to have 4 different movies here at number 5 then, because I got here. I went ahead and put Duel here. Steven Spielberg's first movie out of the gate here. Originally a television movie. I was only like 72 minutes in length. Which I kind of vaguely remember seeing later on when I was younger. I think my brother Jeff showed it to me. But it's a guy that's basically out on the road, and he's traveling, and suddenly for no reason he just becomes terrorized by this trucker who just seems to have it in for him, for one, no apparent motive or reason, and 2, you never see who it is. So I think those 2 elements, the unseen, Spielberg was already like building how he was always going to do those types of things, and the unseen was even more terrifying and horrific than if you were just to show what the whole thing was all about. It was Dennis Weaver, I think, is the actor in it. The only one that would be of note anyway. It actually got a theatrical release, which added like an extra 30 minutes of footage, so they could put it in the theater, because it has to be a certain length to be in the theater. But kind of a cult classic now. A lot of people go back to this, and it even will appear on some people's top 10 lists for Spielberg movies. So I wanted to put it here at number 5. I think it's a great film.
Good one.
4 different ones. We're off and running, man.
Yeah.
Different ones. All right, we're at number 4 then. Let's go.
All right, my number 4 is going to be a movie that got mixed reviews when it came out, but it kind of became a cult classic later, and that is Harold and Maude, Hal Ashby. It's on a quirky storyline about a bored and disconnected young man who resorts to these fake suicide attempts to upset his mother. Not your usual movie material. The Harold's played by Bud Cort, and he meets up with 79-year-old Ruth Gordon, who is able to penetrate kind of his cold exterior, and he kind of falls for her. A 20-year-old falling for a nearly 80-year-old is not your normal movie plot. It's got this great Cat Stevens soundtrack, and Ruth Gordon's just amazing in this movie. And her scene where she is stopped by a motorcycle cop played by Tom Skerritt is comedy gold. It's quirky, and I like it, and that's going to be my number 4.
Didn't see it coming, Randy.
No, I did not see that at all.
I'm glad I have company. It'll be on my list later.
Oh, perfect. All right, Doc, what do you got number 4 here, buddy?
Me, I got my number 4 is Get Carter.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Michael Caine as a gangster mobster kind of guy, man, with revenge for bad guys versus bad guys. His brother's been knocked off, and he doesn't like the way that it sounds and how it went down. And he's a hitman killer kind of guy anyway, a gangster, and he wants to go find out what really happened to his brother. And it's a deep dive into what happens, and he takes no prisoners along the way, man. It's a pretty violent flick. It's Michael Caine doing something you don't necessarily see Michael Caine doing, especially later on in his career, that's for sure. But even before, this was a switch for him. I love the fact that he's the killer and he's the bad guy, and there's lots of pretty good twists and turns inside the story behind it. And, we touched on it at the beginning there, how they push the boundaries of what even topics are sometimes in movies, and this would be one of those things that comes out later on in the movie as well. But
yeah.
Full out movie. Get Carter is a great gangster freaking revenge flick, man. It's right up there. It's a classic.
Good. All right. Wow. So far, we haven't repeated a movie. Keep it going.
We're not going to repeat one next either, because I've got one that you guys may have down the road because it was a huge hit, and that is The French Connection. I have it at number 4, directed by William Friedkin, who recently passed away, I believe. Starring Gene Hackman, Roy Scheider, and Fernando Rey. It won the Oscar for Best Picture. It won the Academy Award for Best Actor for Gene. Kind of another one of these dirty, gritty New York City, on the streets, drug deal, a narcotics ring from France. They're trying to break up, thus The French Connection. It's got the epic car chase under that elevated train with Hackman. It's sort of looped because you see the same cars about 5 different times, and the woman with the baby carriage maybe, and it's very exciting. It's one of the best chase scenes I've seen. It's up there with Bullet and some of the other films of that era. Great cop movie. Hackman is, at the top of his game here. A cat and mouse with that villain played by Fernando Rey. Nothing bad to say. You guys can fill in the rest of it when you get to it on your list. I'm sure it's going to appear on more than one list. So The French Connection is my number 4.
Awesome. All right. My number 4 is going to be Straw Dogs. Little Sam Peckinpah here for you. This is one where immediately I knew that this was going to be a kind of a violent year, because I said, "Oh my God, I remember this movie. It was this awful. It was in intensity." Susan George, Dustin Hoffman, a couple who, in their own way, are kind of estranged. I mean, they seem like they're perfectly content couple, but they're actually, there's rifts that are there, but because of his job and his time that they spend together and stuff. But they move back to the town that she grew up in, and of course they run into an ex, and there's all sorts of animosity there, and it just ends up turning into this very violent movie in which she gets raped, and then Dustin Hoffman has to little by little he seeks revenge on these gentlemen here, and he turns into something that he didn't think that he could be. I remember the scene at the end where he's given one of the characters a ride back to his place, and the character says to him, because I don't remember my way home, and Dustin Hoffman says, well, neither do I. And after all the horrific things that Hoffman now has had to do to rectify the situation and protect him and his wife, he feels like he's not able to go home again. So without giving too much more away, it's really a supercharged film, very intense all the time, and I think that kind of indicative of what 1971 was going to be like, I think. So I went ahead and put it at number 4. So
nice.
Very good.
All right, number 3.
Number 3, I'm going to have the Robert Altman film, McCabe and Mrs. Miller. Altman said he wanted to make a movie without a Western without dust. And this is kind of an anti-Western, and he certainly succeeded in that. Set in Washington State, a mining town. You can feel the harsh, snowy, rainy, muddy, and frigid conditions. It was shot in British Columbia, and I think it must have been hell to film this movie, especially for everyone involved. But the town's called Presbyterian Church, and McCabe is played wonderfully by Warren Beatty as a gambler and businessman who wants to set up a saloon and a brothel. And then along comes Mrs. Miller, played by Julie Christie, who comes to town as a prostitute, but she wants to set up a high-class brothel. And it's the relationship between the two of them, which they also had an off-screen relationship at the same time. That's the major focus in the movie. He also runs afoul with outside interest, and they provide the thrilling climax that happens in this movie. It's beautifully photographed, but always there's a hint of violence that can come around any corner, and nobody seems to react as you expect them to. But I thought it was just a great movie and unbelievable ending, I thought.
And a great Leonard Cohen score soundtrack as well, right?
Yeah.
Nice. Guys, wow. Still, we got 9 different movies. We're rolling, guys.
And even on that one there, you get the original Shining ending there, right? To the side with
That's true.
Yeah.
Sorry if I gave something away there, but
All right, Doc. What do you got?
well, but this will be the controversial pick on where it is, I think, right now. So I have Clockwork Orange here.
Okay.
Yeah, what a messed up film, man. I don't even know I don't even know what to tell you. This is all, it's got it's dystopian films, and Malcolm McDowell is really the heart of the movie. He's there's almost 2 sides to him in one sense. You almost get the feeling like you want to feel like you want to kill the bastard for the first 90% of the movie, and the last 10% of the movie you're sitting there saying, man, I feel pretty bad for that dude or something at some point too. It's like you almost get that kind of feeling the way the ebb and flow of this crazy psycho, basically insane. He's leading an insane group basically of just wild guys that just run amok everywhere and no holds barred on what they do. And once again, this pushes the envelope, but probably at the rating schedules and stuff like that in 1971 and what you could get away with in film. Because it does show a lot when you get right down to it. It even still shows a lot now that it's this is awful to watch in some senses if this actually did happen and stuff like that. But I like the way it's filmed outside everything else. I know it's pretty, it's a simple movie in a lot of senses, but it's very symmetrical. It's very, the shots are long shots, but they last a while when you're watching them. And when they don't, when you're talking and there's interaction between the characters and stuff like that, it's just the focus. You don't have to focus on anything else. It's just that. That's it. Yeah. It pulls and goes right to the next scene. So, movie making and film making and stuff like that, you have to watch this movie, man. This is, this has come a long way. This could be a little polarizing in some circles on what this movie actually is, but you got to give it credit where credit is due, man. Clockwork Orange is, in some senses, this will be higher probably on a lot of people's lists, but for me, this is where it lands, just for personal reasons, my watchables and stuff. But it's a great movie, and it's coming at number 3 for me.
Good pick.
It is a great movie, but I managed to leave it off my list.
Did you?
Because it's not a rewatchable for me. I saw it. It's powerful. It's great. I mean, I love Kubrick's direction in it, but I just picked 5 movies out that I'm willing to go back and watch again that are more in my wheelhouse. So my number 3, going with Dirty Harry, Clint Eastwood, directed by Don Siegel. Now, this was a big year for Clint Eastwood. Randy mentioned
Play.
Misty for me, which came close to making my list. It's a good one. He also had The Beguiled, which is an interesting film from 1971, and Dirty Harry, arguably his most iconic role is Harry Callahan here. Go ahead, make my day, and are you feeling lucky, punk? I love those lines. That scene with the school bus full of children that the villain kidnaps and takes on a little joyride is terrorizing. It's got the language, the vigilante violence that you expect. The San Francisco locations are really cool. Just a great action cop thriller. A good villain here by Andrew Robinson, who really never had much of a career after that I know of, but he's really good in this film. Clint and him go toe-to-toe. I love Clint's charisma on screen. So this is definitely one that is in my top 5. Number 3, Dirty Harry.
Well, I think the pick is fantastic, and the reason I do is because it's my number 3. I think it became this. It's that neo noir crime cop quintessential movie that ended up like dictating how every cop crime movie was going to be done, going forward. So it was very important. Loosely based on the Zodiac killings. They were in the Bay Area. I was inducted into the Library of Congress registry in 2012, being a film of aesthetic and cultural importance. So that's kind of sets the stage for that. You already touched on most of the other aspects of it. I think Clinton was a busy camper that year, but I think that Dirty Harry was like that movie that was like the one that was going to stand out the most, and maybe the one that he's most remembered for. In his whole career, and he's had a vast career. So
yeah,
I got it at number 3, Dirty Harry.
Very good.
Number 2 now.
All right, number 2 for me is one that's already been mentioned, and that's William Friedkin's The French Connection. Great crime drama that centers on one of the biggest drug busts in New York City history. And as Rich said about the amazing chase scene in that, and supposedly they weren't going to be able to get the okay from the subway company or their organization. So the guy that you see running the train, the conductor said, I need like $40,000 because I'm going to get fired after this movie comes out. And they did not get the okay for only a certain section of New York City too, underneath the brain. So a lot of that was done where it shouldn't have been done, but there's great editing on that scene. There's a great performance by Hackman as a dedicated but a little crazy and somewhat unlikable character, but you still stay interested in him. And then from the opening scene in Marseille, there's a killing that's never really explained, but you sort of figure it out as the movie goes. It just kind of shows you that you're in for a wild ride. And like he said, it's gritty. It doesn't make New York City look very beautiful at all, but it's a wonderful movie. French Connection.
Very good.
Excellent choice. Doc, what about you, buddy?
Well, I think Randy's got a really good choice at number 2. I think so. I'm gonna ride on your coattails here, Randy. It's The French Connection for me too. We've talked enough. I think you guys know that I love Gene Hackman anyway. So, but this is early Gene Hackman. Yes, you can. Not too often the Academy gets it right. Going back to what you said, Rich, there, but best actor, best film is it's in the mix here, man. And the only reason why it's not number 1 for me is just a personal reason. So it could very well be number 1 on people's list, and I'd understand. The French Connection is a fantastic cop, gritty. Smells like New York kind of movie, man. It's it's got that feel, it's got that vibe. You touched on the editing, Randy. Great call, man, because there's scenes on the street, even when he's walking and running down the streets, the way it's shot and stuff like that. You're running and buses are moving and stuff like that, and it's street action, it's showing you street action, but the way it's shot and edited, going to the scenes, into the stores, and any scene you want to pick out that happens in the movie. Really, really well made, man. Yeah, it's another one that you actually have to study. Like, how do you make a movie like this? Like, this is the way you do it. This is one of the ways you can look at doing a movie like this. And the supporting cast is great too. Schneider's fantastic, I think, as his partner, and you touched on even the way it ends is a classic there with the French guy running off and stuff like this, and you don't know what actually happens, but all you hear is the sound in the background. So it's French Connection's kind of a classic. 71's a really tough year, man. So placement's the one thing, but Connections was really right for me on this one. So that's my number 2.
There you go.
Very
Rich, what
good.
about you?
My number 2 is one that Randy had earlier, and that's Harold and Maude. I can't get away from it. This is a movie I really love, directed by Hal Ashby, who gave us, in my opinion, 5 great movies in the 70s, and they would be this, The Last Detail, Shampoo, Coming Home, and Being There, all really solid movies, starring Ruth Gordon and Bud Cort. Randy already described it about the 80-year-old and the 20-year-old. It's just a personal favorite, an offbeat love story. They meet at a stranger's funeral. They're very eccentric, lonely people looking for a connection. They find that, and they become friends, and it goes from there. I love the Cat Stevens soundtrack. It's just a quirky, one-of-a-kind little gem. Number 2 for me, Harold and Maude.
All right. Number 2 for moi, I've got Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange here. Dystopian crime drama. Doc's already kind of talked about it a little bit, with Malcolm McDowell in it. Also Patrick McGee, I thought was really good in it. Kind of chronicling the crime spree of Alex and his little group of bowler hat weirdo clowns. Just really odd. I thought what is really odd is someone who's as devious and basically just pure evil, like he just drinks milk. It's kind of an interesting little thing there, rather than anything else, right? Just drinking milk. It actually made the Library of Congress registry in 2020. I wonder why it took so long for that movie to be inducted in. I thought it would have been inducted in a lot sooner than that. I mean, it talks a little bit. Some of the things they talk about is like the rehabilitation of criminals and how just absolutely ridiculous some of the ideas and throughout history have been, and how to rehabilitate criminals and the extremes that they'll go to. It's just a classic film. I'll categorize it as a film, not so much as a movie, because it's not like something the whole family going to sit down and watch. It's really kind of a film that you want to sit down, you want to analyze, and maybe watch again and see if you can pick up on something different. But you'll appreciate the filmmaking portion of it and the directing more than maybe perhaps you will, for the entertainment value overall. So I got it number 2 though, Clockwork Orange.
All right, cool.
We're at number 1.
Number 1. I'm wondering if we're all going to have the same thing, because I don't know. But
I don't know. Let's see about that.
I guarantee we won't.
No.
We won't.
No, we won't.
Okay. My number 1 is going to be Peter Bogdanovich's The Last Picture Show. It's a movie. The images just kind of stick with me. I think back to my high school days when I think of this movie sometimes, even though I wasn't from a small town. But this is a small Texas town that seems desolate. You got the wind and dust always blowing. It's a coming-of-age film. But the soul of the movie is really Ben Johnson, who won an Academy Award for his performance. And he owns the diner, the pool hall, the movie theater. So as a high school kid, you had those 3 choices of something to do or awkward pursuits of sex. It's kind of like your thing. And supposedly, Peter Bogdanovich asked Orson Welles, he wanted to do a movie with deep focus like Citizen Kane and like The Magnificent Ambersons. And Orson Welles told him, well, you got to shoot it in black and white then. And Peter Bogdanovich thought, well, they're never going to go for that. But they did. So it came out wonderfully. Great performances by Cloris Leachman, who also won an Academy Award, Eileen Brennan, Ellen Burstyn, Timothy Bottoms. Just the whole cast was great. And Sybil Shepherd as the town beauty that turned many beaux' lives upside down. And then she has the famous swimming pool scene as well.
Absolutely.
That's just a
Yes.
classic movie for me.
Yes. Nice. Doc, what do you think?
Yeah, Last Picture Show is I'm not gonna lie to you, that was my last cut on my list, just so you know. But it's a real great coming of age kind of movie for it. It's a great flick. So, but my personal number one is Dirty Harry. I can't get around it. It's probably my favorite cop movie or something like that. If I start getting into stuff like this too, man, you know, the Scorpion and as the bad guy, you know, the rooftop killer and stuff like that. That Rich touched on earlier. There, this is classic. You know, no BS. Harry Callahan coming at you, man. He's the guy that takes nothing from nobody, including his superiors, and he's going to do things his way. And there's a bad guy roaming the streets, and that's his focus, man. And he's got no holds barred on how he goes about doing his business. So the 44 Magnum outside everything else, go ahead and make my day. Do you feel lucky, punk? All this classic lines and stuff like that. But you mentioned Anderson Robinson there, I think, too, as the bad guy, I think, too, Rich. And yeah, he was in Hellraiser. I'll say that, you know, later on in life. But he's great as Scorpion, the killer. The psycho, basically. And there's great scenes, especially in the stadium at night there. That's a great scene, too. So Callahan's a classic. Dirty Hair's a classic bad guy cop movie, and probably my favorite one. Action stop, man. Non-stop action, lots of stuff. Great run scenes at night, man. It's great. I can watch that anytime, man. I love that flick. Dirty Harry's my number one for 71 for sure.
Awesome.
I kind of figured that.
Yeah,
I kind of figured it too, because I know
So
I know your style of action cop. So
totally.
that's the pick of the litter. Let's say it's at the top.
It is.
all right, Rich, what do you got?
Number one, easy for me. It is The Last Picture Show. Randy did a beautiful job describing it. Peter Bogdanovich, his first film, black and white, like everything about it, coming of age. That small Texas town, which is really dying. There's really no industry in that area. It's just a few local yokels hanging on for dear life. Unhappy people, miserable, bored. And it trickles down to the teens, or, they have to make a decision. They're at that age where they're out of high school and they got to get out, basically, or end up like the people they're looking at in front of them. It's just one of those things. I agree with everything Randy said. Jeff Bridges, another one of the actors in here. Timothy Bottoms has the lead role, I guess, as the young person. Ben Johnson's fantastic. Cloris Leachman, Sybil Shepherd in the pool, memorable. And it's bleak, depressing, a sense of hopelessness, but it's so beautifully shot, acted, directed. Everything about it just works. And that's why it's number one. I think it's one of the best films of the entire decade. I would go that far. It would probably make my top 10 of the 1970s as a decade.
Wow. All right, that was my last cut as well. I had that.
Yeah.
I had that one as my number 6, and it kind of bounced around a little bit, and I end up settling on Duel there. So my number 1 is The French Connection. I just rewatched it again the other day. And I got to tell you, for supposedly being the hero of the movie, I found it really hard to like Gene Hackman's character. Now, his acting was fantastic in it, but boy, I got to tell you, Popeye was just not a likable person as a human being. He just simply wasn't. I like Roy Snyder's character much better as his partner. I thought much more ethical, much more straight laced and everything. All the things you think a cop should be. I think Randy mentioned, about the permits and stuff. I do remember reading somewhere like they had to do a little bit of guerrilla style filming where like you don't have a permit to film, but like you'll go film at a location you want to until you get busted. Until somebody says something or a cop shows up, you just get whatever you can, and then you take off again. Yeah. I remember reading something about that. I guess Cameron had to do that too with the Terminator at one point, but. I think it's a classic crime drama. I like the fact that there seems to be like 2 stories going on right at the beginning, and you're kind of cutting back and forth, between the States and the Frenchmen there, and then eventually they meet up, you know, and then there's the resolution and stuff like that. I think that's really great filmmaking where you got that type of thing where the tension builds from both sides of the coin and meet in the middle. It was really good style. Thoroughly enjoyable. I could see why I could win Best Picture for sure. So it's a rewatchable film. I got that as my number one. So
very good.
Guys, this was a diverse list. We only had one where all of us had it, and that was The French Connection.
That was The French Connection.
The French Connection, and 12 different movies were mentioned. So that's a big deal. I thought we would have a little bit more in common, but hey, I like the fact that there's a lot more diversity this time.
Yeah, I just want to mention I was shocked that a James Bond lover like Doc and Brian did not have Diamonds Are Forever, but I didn't have it either. So it's just it's too strong a year for that to get in. Obviously.
For my list of my extras that I had, you guys rang off a lot of them, right?
Right.
So,
yeah.
Cardinal Knowledge was on my list. Brian, so Clute, Clay Misty, Shaft, Straw Dogs, the Fisto Waltz, McCabe and Mrs. Miller. I did not have Diamonds Are Forever even on my list.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's not a high end Bond.
No, it's not. It's not. I liked my runners up were Clockwork Orange, McCabe and Mrs. Miller, Play Misty for me, Clute, Panic in Needle Park. I really like. It's another one of those gritty 70s movies. Those are the ones and that stand out.
I had Clute Dirty Harry was my last one that I cut. Also like Clute, Cold Turkey. I don't know if you've seen that movie.
I haven't seen it.
No.
It's a good movie. It's got a good Randy Newman song in it too. A New Leaf with Elaine May movie I thought was really good. And I thought the best of the Planet of the Apes movies that came afterward.
It is.
Yeah, so.
Very good.
Wow. A little bit of diversity. Well, that's good. 1971. Yeah. 1971 turned out to be a great year to cover, fellas. I really appreciate you guys joining me for sure. Everybody, please like, sub, and comment down below. Be sure to check out our other videos from 1965 up until this point. We'll be filming, continuing all the way to 1979, and about every third week, we're going to be doing the top 10 best movies from particular directors to kind of mix that in there a little bit. So we've got 72 coming up next week. A couple weeks from now, we're going to be focusing on the Coen brothers, which will be a very fun one to do. I have a feeling. Also check out some of those other top directors and top movie stuff that's on both our channels, Rich's channel and myself. When you get an opportunity, we did some videos a couple years back too that has some really great information in them. So until next time, everybody, you guys take care. We'll see you at 72. Bye-bye.
Later. See ya.